Good evening to you. My name is Juliet Nicholson, and again, I'll be discussing Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. So to start off, we're going to talk about the level 1 readers the level 1 readers activity that I've already went through, their center. So while reading the book, they'll be filling out characters into this chart. So there's 5 characters going down the column, and then there's 5 characters across the column. They'll have to, so they'll give a brief description with each character. They'll write the character's name right beside the number, and then a small brief description of the character. From here, and then they'll do the same for the top. From here, they'll connect the character's relationship in this box, and then in the text evidence in this box, they'll provide evidence from the text that kind of shows that their relationship is that way. And they'll do this for all the characters. If 2 characters don't really interact, they'll just put no interaction, and then they can leave this spot blank. But most characters do interact in the book in some way, shape, or form, so it should be nearly completely filled out. To start off with talking about Bloom's taxonomy on this assignment, students are identifying the characters, they're recalling information from the book, they're applying it to a chart, and they're connecting the relationships together, and then they're just gonna create this whole chart to kind of help them analyze what characters' roles are in the book. So for the rubric, I have graded them off of 4 things. One of them is spelling and grammar. Students are allowed to have up to 3 mistakes for the 16 to 25 range. The students are allowed to have 4 to 8 mistakes for the 6 to 15 point range, and students are allowed to have up to 9 spelling and grammar errors, up to 0 to 5 points. The next thing is the description of the characters. Even though they're going to be small, brief descriptions, the character description should be accurate and kind of clear. Even though it is brief, there's not that much room on there to actually describe it. So as long as character descriptions are clear and brief, they'll score within the 16 to 25 point range. If they're somewhat clear or not exactly accurate but are clear, they'll score in the 6 to 15 point range, and if they are not clear or not accurate at all, they'll score in the 0 to 5 point range. For the next section is character relationships. So that's this part where they are going through and telling the relationship between 2 characters. So the characters' relationships are well defined and shows a clear understanding of the character relationships and roles. So students are making sure that the roles and relationships are defined, and that is scored on the 16 to 25 point range. If they're somewhat defined, then it's scored on the 6 to 15 point range, and if they're not really defined or not defined at all, they're on the 0 to 5 point range. Now the next thing is the evidence from the text. The more evidence that supports the characters, the better. The character relationships, the better. Some evidence that doesn't really show the relationship will score in the 6 to 15 point range, and then no evidence or evidence that doesn't pertain to anything at all is 0 to 5. Now how this helps low-level readers is they get a better understanding of characters and how they play a part in the story. they also get to learn how to find the evidence from the story that can help them evaluate what characters actually are like, the character relationships, the roles of the characters, and so on and so forth. But all in all, I think this would be a really great activity for the students. They'll work together on this, collaborate with one another, and talk with one another to see how did they get characters to come together? Where did they find evidence? What can I find to help these characters come together? And of course, there's 10 characters that you'll choose, and there's more characters than that in this, even though some characters have very minor roles. There are more characters, so these 10 aren't necessarily specific 10. Anyway, and then last thing is how this touches on the standard. Students are pulling evidence from the book to help define the characters' relationships. Yep. So I really like this, and I hope you did too. And then we'll move on to our next section.